Thursday morning, we had our first live stream from the Destiny2Team Twitch account with Destiny 2 Game Director Joe Blackburn, as well as Senior Social Manager Andy Salisbury. Now, the purpose of this stream was to mainly hang out, but also answer questions the community had on Destiny, as well as questions surrounding game development and much more. Now, one thing to note is that they mentioned in the stream that they do not plan to have any major announcements in these, and that those will be reserved for posts from the Destiny2 Team account on Twitter, in TWABs, and bigger events like trailers and showcases. With that being said though, there were some very interesting questions that were being asked, which is why we've gathered everything together today, guys, to run through all of these. Now, question number one, how does Joe and the team feel about Checkmate so far? Joe and team replied that they're very happy with Checkmate and that the team has more changes planned, with more laps to come. And essentially, they're looking to find ways to bring it to the larger PvP ecosystem outside of Crucible Labs. Now note, they do not say what this form will take, but to be quite frank, guys, Bungie is leaning heavily toward Checkmate. They like it, and a lot of people are also liking it, and we can very well see this being the norm across Crucible. Maybe even things like competitive or trials. This could literally be the new main PvP sandbox. Now, a bit later in the stream, they did recap their Checkmate thoughts though, saying that it allows them to keep PvE wild and also keep PvP more in line. And it says, on the PvP side, there's so many radical different opinions on what people want from PvP, so it's been good to collect all these different opinions and suggestions. Now, we are going to be putting out our thoughts very soon on Checkmate. Whether or not I like it though, I'm just letting you know that I do believe Bungie is moving in the direction of making Checkmate the new Crucible norm. Question number two, how does Joe feel about where Banner of War is right now? It was funny because Joe was actually using Banner of War with his build when asked that question. Yes, we have definitely been partaking in the nastiness of that build. Joe replied that he's excited about Banner of War as it illustrates the Titan fantasy, specifically mentioning Into the Fray, and that it can be dangerous and high in activities, but at the same time very rewarding. But they're going to continue to keep an eye on it, and if it feels too dominant in those in-game activities, they'll do something about it. But as of now, they're actually happy with it, guys. So for my folks asking for this to get nerfed, at least for the time being, it's safe. And we had so many comments the other day from our 10-minute GM run. Everyone was like, oh my God, how can Bungie let this go? They need to nerf this. For the love of God, fellas, can we not have some fun stuff? I'm just saying. And don't get me wrong, this build is really strong, but the moment you lose those stacks, the moment you lose Woven Mail, you get melted so fast. Now, they also mentioned that in in-game activities, he mainly sees Bonk Titans, which is true. And he actually mentioned some other subclasses, things like Well of Radiance, but the main focus here is on Titans. And Bonk Titans, especially for things like soloing dungeons, has been something we've relied on for a very long time. The DPS output that you can do with your Bonk Hammer is nutty. And this is not me asking Bungie to nerf that either. But for the time being, Bungie is actually okay with Banner of War. Question number three, Joe was asked about Weavewalk and its balance in general, and was also asked whether or not it would be getting a second fragment slot, and also the best place to provide that feedback. Joe mentions here that in the stream is a good spot. The team monitors feedback from all social media, whether it's Twitter, Reddit forums, and there's not one specific channel for them. But as for Weavewalk, he says it has the potential to be very powerful and very oppressive. He goes on to mention that it feels really cool, but that they have to monitor how it interacts in the game, as it has the potential to break certain parts of the game, as we saw with Rift in PvP, or surviving things you shouldn't normally be able to survive. No lie, guys. Listen, I was never a Warlock main, but there was a moment earlier this season when Weavewalk was dominating the game, primarily PvP, when you could glaive out of your Weavewalk. Outside of the craftening, it has been the most fun I've had in PvP in a very long time. Now, to be honest, I have not been using Weavewalk much because I can't cheese as much with it. But yeah, its damage resist is really nasty. Something I hope Bungie doesn't do away with. Now, question number four. This question was about our UI, and if there was going to be any updates on changes that Bungie has planned to allow us to see our buffs and debuffs better. Joe mentioned that Bungie is currently working on UI and making sure that they are able to display all the information that people want to see, and they're aiming for the final shape. The new UI system has been going through lots of different iterations, and he says that the first time they make these changes, it will feel disorienting to most players, as it will be a big change from what we've had for years now. Now, personally, considering all the status effects that we have in this game, guys, we need more stuff on our UI. I need to be able to see more. I hate not having the option to see buffs on one side of my screen and debuffs on the other side of my screen. Now, what they're saying here is that this change, like most changes, players are probably not gonna like due to it just being different. And that is normally the case with all things. But I also wanna ask Bungie to really consider giving us fully customizable UIs. Final Fantasy XIV does this, and this is a beautiful beautiful way to allow folks to choose what they want. And I know it's a complicated system, but if I want to put my debuffs on the very top left hand of my screen and my buffs at the very top right of my screen, if I want to remove the text and make them icons only, if I want to make my super bar vertical, again, these are major changes, but this is something that I feel like Bungie should invest in, and everyone will come out on the end of this winning. Question number 5, what is coming up for Stasis? More specifically, are we getting any new fragments or abilities? Answer, Bungie is focused on tuning the kits and smaller additions. Joe actually went on to say that fragments are on the table, but wouldn't expect new Stasis aspects in the immediate future. He also says some cool stuff is coming down the pipe sooner than you think, so think like next season. And the reason why this question was asked, guys, is that there is a lot of folks wanting Stasis to be better, as it feels very much overshadowed by Strand. Yes, Strand is definitely popping off. Don't get me wrong, I love using Stacy, but for the most part, why use Stacy and freeze everything when you could just literally run it over with a multitude of Strand builds? But considering how so many other subclasses are getting synergies and reworks, Stasis is one of those that does feel outdated and left behind, despite it being the first one to get this subclass overhaul, essentially being the first subclass that gave us aspects and fragments. Luckily though, Bungie is going to be giving it love soon. Question number 6, can we expect more modifiers like Asa's gift from Season of the Deep and the Deck of Whispers from this season? Answer, the team wants to continue to mix and match, but yes, we will definitely see more of this. Essentially going on to say that they're not done with roguelite abilities. They're going to continue to show evolutions of that framework next season. And let me just say, that's going to be probably an even bigger deal during episodes. Because right now we have these like Deck of Whispers, it's here for this season, but with episodes being longer and Bungie really diving into the system deeper, I really feel like they're testing things out for when they launch those episodes. And considering those time frames are going to last much longer, those decks are going to mean a lot more. And personally, I've actually really liked this mechanic this past season. Now, question number 7. This question was surrounding legacy focusing, and it was asked, would legacy focus be expanded into old ritual drops like shaders and emblems? Joe went on to say that he's looking to see what lands and what to invest further in when it comes to these systems. He also proceeded to say things like legacy focusing and the ability to favorite shaders have been a great addition, but no announcements here on this front. But they're already invested in the system and will continue to do so. Essentially ending his answer by stating that quality of life features is something they themselves love to do, as it enriches their experience when playing Destiny. Question number 8, are there any plans to make master raids and dungeons available all the time instead of having to wait months for it to come back? Answer, Bungie's actually looking at different ways to roll out some of these in-game activities, especially with the power simplification coming in the final shape, but nothing officially set in stone just yet. Question number 9, what happened to Joe's mustache? Joe goes on to say that his wife goes through phases of how long she can deal with a mustache. It's gone for now, but yes, this was by far the most pressing question of the whole stream. Question number 10, from a design standpoint, how did they feel contest mode went with Crota's end? Bungie stated that they're actually very happy with the results, as well as the completion rates, the different team compositions, and how it required sandbox excellence to achieve that contest mode completion. I love that right there. Sandbox excellence. It's not just about showing up and shooting a gun. You literally had to know the sandbox to excel during contest mode. But they're also looking at these knobs and dials for the next raid and which ones to crank up and which ones to crank down. But from a mechanical standpoint, it hit its stride. And the team loves their content mysteries and how they do not have things like open betas, and everyone is going blind for the first time. Question number 11, what was it like to bring Crota's in forward, as well as listening to the naysayers at the time? Joe mentioned that the team felt confident. At the end of D1, they had actually brought Crota and Vogue up to parity with other raids in Destiny 1, and they knew some ways to fix encounters already, such as the bridge encounter. The team was confident that they could make something awesome, and they say it's cool to have a shorter raid, but have it feel worthy of being a raid, and they're stoked with how it turned out and what they learned for the future. Guys, I can't stress how great it is to hear this. This tells you that not only is Destiny themselves, but the game director himself are in tune with what we are feeling and experiencing in the game, which makes me extremely hopeful for the final shape. Now, question 12. In Joe's opinion, what is the most iconic weapon archetype? He goes on to say that hand cannons, even though not his favorite, is still the most iconic, and I have to agree with him. You go to other games, you play with things like pulse rifles, auto rifles, SMGs, shotgun snipers, etc., but there's something about hand cannons in Destiny, on top of a number of other exotic weapons. But yes, hand cannons, just from an archetype standpoint, represents Destiny very well. Question number 13. What was it like for Bungie during the week of the craftening? Now, for my folks that don't know what the craftening was, we essentially had a week there where everything went haywire in a beautiful, terrifying way. We were were able to take exotic perks and put them on legendary weapons. We were able to take archetypes and merge them with other archetypes. I had a shotgun that shot like a sniper rifle, an auto rifle that shot like a shotgun. It was a beautiful time. Joe describes it as an absolutely crazy weekend and gives a shout out to a massive amount of people at Bungie who came together that weekend to resolve that issue. Now, it continued into that week, but he stated that they had a team that rotates for these type of game-breaking issues that they called the Triage Emergency Team. But their team had uncovered the glitch that Friday and immediately started meeting on how to fix it and how fast can they fix it and the implications of keeping the game live. Again, they could have took the whole game down, but they kept it up. The last thing they ever wanted to do was turn it off, or worse, do a rollback. They had to create mirrors of the live game environment, and they spent a lot of time validating potential fixes, describing it as absolutely insanity and one of the craziest weeks at Bungie. No lie, the way they talked about it, it sounded like they just had a lot of fun with it. And I know for a fact that people at Bungie were taking advantage of this glitch. Don't lie, Bungie. You were running around with aiming shotguns too. Now, question number 14. Is there anything fun Bungie is doing for the crafting, such as an emblem? Now, Joe originally said he could not confirm or deny, but Andy in the stream confirmed that there will be an emblem, and we actually saw it on the TWAB this past week. But for my folks that did log in during that week, you will receive this emblem here, which truly does represent everything happening with the crafting, right? Like, you got the Enclave look there, the same color palette, question mark. It's perfect. Now, question number 15. What is Joe's favorite raid boss in design? Joe and the team was very happy with how Rourke turned out. There was a very interesting design space there on how to personify the darkness and make him menacing. Now, from what Joe worked on personally himself, Gorgoroth was the first raid boss he worked on, which has a special place in his heart. He also worked on Riven, and the team was really proud of that. Now, he says he has a lot of love for Deepstone Crypt, and creating Nezarec was one of his favorites. And he loves the concept art. It says that it's one of his favorite explorations for a character they have ever done. And he says to look up Nezarec on ArtStation. Look, let me just say this, guys. The build-up for Nezarec was wild, right? Think about the exotics that we have and legendary weapons that have Nezarec in the name. We collected body parts with this guy. We turned him into a T. I was let down with Nezarec in the raid. I felt like he should have been stronger. Maybe not as strong as Rourke, but close. Regardless, though, I love that Joe and the team was really happy with Rourke. I love that they worked on Riven. This is a team riddled with veterans. What we hope to see is that the final shape is gonna pop, man. Question number 16. Will event weapons ever be craftable? Joe mentions that they're actually more interested in adepts and how those perks can be enhanced. Now, it's interesting that he mentioned that. Some of us are wondering if Joe is trying to say that perhaps normal random drops will be able to get enhanced perks, not so much making event weapons have an adept form. Keep in mind, this guy was in the middle of gaming while also answering these questions, but he did mention that they do not want every weapon to be craftable. He wants a balance between craftable and RNG drops, and he wants to make it so that you're just as happy with a random roll weapon compared to a craftable weapon. Joe states, though, that he's not going to talk about some of the other ideas that they have for crafting, as when they were originally developing crafting, there were some ideas they actually had to pull. So long story short, those ideas may actually find itself in the live game someday. Now, this has been a hot debate, guys. I mean, we made a video on here recently talking about crafting and whether or not crafting has ruined Destiny. A lot of people feel like it has, but it seems like Bungie is trying to create that balance between both of these areas by still having RNG drops be exciting in certain areas and then craftable rolls be present in others. Question number 17. What is your favorite exotic right now? Joe mentioned that he loves Yone and says he is a Yone apologist and he loves how it shoots, the sci-fi aspect of it, and he says throwing it on is always a good time. He also says that if you're looking to get into harder content, you should always choose Wishender. And he mentions that if he had to use one exotic forever, he would probably choose Wishender. And he also mentioned that his favorite weapon is DMT. Question number 18. What are some of Joe's favorite activities so far this season? Joe mentions he really likes having to inspire both the normal and legend versions, and he likes those super roguelike dungeon vibes with tons of things to shoot here. And he also says that he loves the Deck of Whispers aspect that they introduced this past season. Question number 19. On the topic of roguelites, what are Joe's favorite roguelite games? Joe mentioned he was an early adopter of Hades, but his overall favorite is Dead Cells, and he loves being inspired by other great games. Now, question number 20. This is around Festival of the Lost. It was asked, will Eerie Ingrams be filled with plenty of loot? And what loot is Joe looking forward to getting his hands on? He mentioned that Horror Story has some new roles, and he's looking to grab that. And he also notes that the auto rifles are feeling great right now, which they are. He mentioned that the new grenade launcher is worth looking at, as he really likes high velocity GLs. And it's also the first time that they're adding a new memento since the original 3 were introduced with the Witch Queen. And he's very excited about that, and the team loves the look of it. And again, guys, this is a time limited memento. Now, there are some people confused about what a memento is. It's essentially literally a shader that you will be able to apply to your legendary weapons, but it's a one-time use only, and you can only hold this shader one time. You normally have to level the weapon up substantially before you can equip the shader. Now it's a flex, and that's what mementos are supposed to serve. And in this case, this sleek black design, sexy. I'm gonna try to put it on every weapon I got. Now, question number 21. What is the current status of the Crota's End contest emblems? Answer, Bungie is still working on getting that. They said to just keep an eye at Bungie help, but that it is a complex issue. The team is taking a safe approach and making sure it goes out properly, and hopefully will be addressed soon. I know this is a question that gets asked pretty much every week, guys, but yes, these emblems should be getting fixed, hopefully before next season. Now, question number 22. Has Joe been enjoying this season's story? Joe mentioned that he and the team have been enjoying it, and he stated that the team was excited for a magic-focused season with all the hive magic and everything surrounding Eris and her getting the spotlight. And let me just also say this, guys, I don't know what it is, but every time it's anything related to like hive, most notably Oryx, Savathun, and whatnot, Bungie, for some reason, lore-wise, just really ball out. And I'm curious if it's just because they have so much more substance to go off of when it comes to the hive. Now, question number 22. Are there any plans to do weekly rotating contest mode raid? Answer, no big reveals at this time, but definitely considering all options, and notes that the team really enjoyed Crota's End contest mode, but goes on to say to expect to see more experiments and tweaks in the future. Question number 23. Will we ever get Sparrow customization? Answer, one thing at a time. Right now, they're really just worried about getting all Sparrows to just drive at the same speed. That was mentioned in the most recent TWAB, and that will be rolling out in Season 23. Always on time will no longer be the fastest Sparrow in the game, which means I can finally start rocking something else. Now, question number 24. If someone is looking to get into the game industry, but they don't really entirely like programming, what should they do? Joe says that you need to know what you want to do. Says that there's a bunch of great resources on YouTube to look at that can help you decide, do you want to be a designer? What kind of designer do you want to be? Do you like art? There's also things like QA, production, etc. And Joe says that there's some overlap in terms of skills, but mostly different career paths that can all lead into the gaming industry. Now, Joe doesn't really expand on this because he entered a 1v1 with the deadliest Minotaur in all of Destiny. This guy's literally the final shape. Question number 25. Are there any more reprisals for Destiny 1 plan? Joe stated that there's nothing to announce today, but that any big announcements in that regard will come from the Destiny2 team, Twitter account, TWABs, etc. And the final question, question number 26, will we see other devs on this Twitch channel? Answer, there's no set schedule yet, but yes, they may in the future have other members of Bungie on this Twitch channel besides Joe and Andy. I do want to mention though, guys, Joe and Andy and the team at Bungie, they did an excellent job. We very much enjoyed this stream. Told us a lot of things about them. Number one, Bungie personally plays this game. And I'm saying this because I've actually watched Bungie before in some of the streams, and it literally looked like the folks I was watching didn't play Destiny at all. Now, I know everyone is memeing on Joe about this Minotaur, but let me just say that Minotaur was cracked out. I don't know what the hell happened to him, but that Minotaur would have killed any of us, all right? But I'm sitting there watching a guy that's very much in tune with the sandbox. I'm watching someone who plays this game, both PvE and PvP, who not only understands the current sandbox, but he understands it enough to not get mixed up with the future content he has already played. And look, I know this because I have literally listened to game directors for even other games that couldn't even tell you what the meta was. They were clueless about the game. How they ended up in the position that they ended up in, I have no idea. What I got from this was that Joe and the team there with them, they're gamers. They're Destiny gamers. And that ultimately excites me more than anything we have seen trailer-wise for what's coming in the final shape. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching. And as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.